So joining us now is Erika Block of Saganworks.
Hey, Paul. Good morning, everyone. So my path to starting two software companies actually began with a footnote from a book that was given to me by an ex about 20 years ago. At the time, I was actually running a theater company, writing plays and directing plays. I was repurposing old elevator shafts into swimming pools, choreographing film noir love stories, and exploring evil and ambition in Shakespeare. So a playwright's job is to tell a good story, right? Director's job is to find the most talented people and create an environment where they can get their best work done. It's pretty much what a CEO does, so the skills transferred really nicely. So this book with the footnote was called Flight Maps, Adventures with Nature in Modern America. And I was reading about plastic pink flamingos and the Audubon Society, and I ran across a footnote that referenced Rebecca Solnit. If you haven't heard of her, Solnit is a fantastic writer and historian, and Wanderlust is a history of walking and its connection to religion and evolution and politics and art and architecture and philosophy, really walking as a history of everything. So this book was really powerful for me, and it led to a 4-year adventure for my theater company where we created performances and art exhibits, and we had music events, and we did lots of walking and mapping. And we called it the Walking Project. And one of the things that we really noticed was that there were all these paths that people were making off the grid that someone else had created for them, just like this. This is called a desire line, which is just lovely and rich. And so I got really interested in, from walking, I started to look at all of these paths. And something that Solnit writes is that you should get out and walk and look for the things you don't know you're looking for. And so I kind of stumbled on desire lines and this sort of richness from a footnote, and then it got me out walking. And so I got really interested in mapping, and particularly mapping the unmapped paths that people walked across, because maps are stories, and we don't always hear those stories. So I decided that I wanted to go back to grad school, sort of mid-career, and study technology for mapping and storytelling. So I did that, and while I was in school, I started doing research for my next theater project, which was called A History of Eating. So I was interviewing farmers and chefs and people working in the food system, and I started to learn about common problems with local supply chains, local food supply chains, and I realized that these small producers and distributors didn't have the tools to build sustainable businesses. So I decided I really wanted to create those tools, which meant that I needed to start a software company. So that company is called Local Orbit, and that footnote, which led me to mapping, which led me to technology, turned directly into my first tech startup. So it was an interesting process. And it was, after 6 years and about 80 local supply chains later, it was time for me to move on. And I was actually talking to one of my investors from Local Orbit who shared with me an idea he had about solving a knowledge management problem. And that idea, he asked me if I wanted to start a company with him, and that idea became Saganworks. And so this is a problem I think a lot of you will be familiar with. We have a huge amount of digital knowledge, documents, photos, all this information that's spread across different cloud services on different devices, right? It's really hard to find stuff that you saved a week ago or a month ago, let alone a year or more. We spend a lot of time looking for and actually losing knowledge. And so the problem is that really our brains don't work in 2D. When you think about it, we're storing files and documents in hierarchical folder structures. You look across different browser tabs, you've got text to sort of point you in the direction, but we don't think that way. It's not really easy to remember. But what is really powerful is our visual and spatial memory. It grounds us in place, it helps us remember things. So Saganworks is actually thinking about this problem and thinking, well, what if we could create 3D sort of immersive environments and organize our knowledge in these spaces? And with the evolution of 3D technology, which is still very new, we're now able to create a tool. We're in the process of creating a tool that will allow anybody to create a 3D space to easily share and organize their knowledge. So this is a journey through my career, the journey that I just mapped out for you, okay? And I basically took documents that were in Dropbox, I took photos from an old Flickr account, I took URLs, and I put them in this space. And you know, it was kind of interesting because I've never had an opportunity to do this before, to sort of take stock of my career. And I can open up these documents, I can click on a web browser here, and it helps me. I can rearrange it, and I can kind of, oh yeah, this connects to this, and I can pull in something else or find something else, and it starts to make sense with me. So it starts to make more sense to me. And so, you know, I don't think I ever would have put this space together if not for this talk that I'm giving today, because you don't really think, oh, let's go back and do a retrospective of your career. But, you know, day to day when you're building a company, you're often kind of immersed in the problems of the moment, right? And so you don't really get a chance to step back. And one thing that happened when we were recording this little video, and by the way, this space took about a half an hour to put together because it's easy to pull the stuff in. The time it takes is really kind of figuring out how you want to arrange things. But as I started watching this walkthrough, this screencast, I started to think about the things that I had learned over many years of building different kinds of businesses. This knowledge that had disappeared was resurfacing, and it gave me this really interesting, fresh perspective on what I could do today. And so that's the thing that I hope we're doing. And what we're building is a tool that lets you not only organize, but leverage the knowledge and information that you collect across a lifetime and share it with people so we don't lose it. And it's this, for me, I have to say, it hit me in the gut. You kind of forget sometimes what you're doing when you're doing it. This one, it got me. I'm like, oh, I learned something, and I started rethinking my approach to solving problems because I was able to bring back things that I remembered and learned from, 20 years of work. So we are going to be demoing Saganworks on the Tech Trek today. We'd love to have you come by. And what I really want to do, though, is I want to thank the Tech Trek organizers, and also thank you for this opportunity for me to actually test and play with this tool we're building in a new way. So thank you.